Well, hello. Welcome to my world. My name is Michael Sarne, and I directed this film you're about to see. It's called Myra, Breckinridge. I wrote this. I must write it all down. I wrote this in my own handwriting, and I thought the actual studio couldn't imitate my handwriting. When the art department got hold of my handwriting, they wrote it better than me. So a lot of the handwriting style, you see, that sort of disjointed, nervous. Obviously, the guy's completely paranoid. That's me. He's got big psychological problems. You can tell from here. Look at those lines at the bottom. Somebody who knows about handwriting could tell you a lot about the person who wrote this, Myra Breckinridge. So I suppose I sympathized a lot with Myra Breckinridge. Oh, here he is. Now, this is Rex Reed. He was a film critic I saw on the Dick Cavett show. Very camp, very knowledgeable, very full of himself. And I was pretty sure he'd want to be a movie star. It's rather like one of those teachers, you know, those who can do and those who can't teach. And here we have someone, just those who can't do, criticize. So he's the ideal person for this part. This is my good friend John Carradine, wonderful guy, terrific actor. And John used to take me to Italian restaurants in New York where we'd hear opera and young singers from the Met. He'd tell me great stories about the Barrymores. And terrific guy. He had very bad arthritis, and you can see his hands are crippled with arthritis, but didn't seem to spoil his performance even a little bit. The blonde girl there was my secretary. I used to have a very good secretary, and they sacked her because she was too efficient, so they gave me that blonde girl. She was less efficient, and the producer didn't want me to have a very efficient secretary. First one I had was terrific.
How about circumcision? Could be cheaper.
Come on. Let's get it over with.
As you can tell, this isn't supposed to be a realistic scene. Now, this girl's very important to the film.
We like to blow up your tits for silicone.
This girl here. See who winks?
How about to use paraffin? No.
Now, I got the idea for her from a film by Fellini called Toby Dammit, which features a devilish little satanic girl. And it seemed to me that a leitmotif of that kind carries through a film like this. And so she's very heavily featured, and she's always talking about people's nuts. What a charming man John Carradine was. Now, these guys here are actually supposed to be directors who are applauding the idea that that people can be emasculated and become totally involved in film and be characters in their own movie.
S-M-I-L-E. If something may upset you, don't ever let it get you down. Don't wear a frown.
And these are obviously autographs. John's autograph and May's autograph and Raquel's autograph.
Here's a spelling lesson that will do the trick. You got.
The idea, of course, is this is a showbiz film. It's, if you like, the alternative showbiz film. It's not supposed to be too believable.
You've got the S-M-I-L-E. It's gonna help considerably.
Now, Raquel is actually quite a good dancer. I mean, not as a dancer, but she dances. I think she's done a bit of ballet. And she used to do the Bob Hope troupe entertainment, so she's not all bad.
Gentlemen, just for fun, I'd like to sing the song.
So we have W.C. Fields and Frank, and so she's got a nice figure.
And last but not least, that swingable pair, Ginger Rogers and Fred Astaire. You've got S-M-I-L-E.
Now the music, Lionel Newman is the father of Randy Newman, who wrote Short People.
My mammy, life is divine, and a quarter to...
Richard Moore is the inventor of Panavision. He and his partner invented Panavision, and Richard was telling me he used to polish early Panavision lenses himself by hand, and then he sold out half the company. And Richard loved underwater filming with sharks. That was his speciality.
Carcass with Ida
The crowd artists in this scene, Gilbert Rowland, Frank Sinatra, W.C. Fields, these are lookalikes of movie legends. Bobby Fryer, the director, the producer, I'm the director, by the way. Bobby Fryer was big in musicals, and I thought I'd give him a little bit of fun here. And I think he produced Mame and Hello Dolly, or one of those. He also produced Boston Strangler. Don't know what the connection is there, but there probably is one.
I am Myra Breckinridge.
Now, the atom bomb went off, and Richard Zanuck, the head of the studio, asked me, why did you have that atom bomb going off right at the beginning of the picture? And I couldn't think of what to say, so I said, the devil made me do it.
So Myra died to give birth to Myra.
This statue here we had to put up again because it was always there, the cowgirl. And the studio really sort of thought I was being a bit extreme, insisting that it goes back up there. But I think it's absolutely essential to the understanding of the Myra Breckinridge book and the film. I don't know if you can see any similarity between Rex and Raquel, but they do look like brother and sister at least.
Myra Breckinridge is a dish. And don't you ever forget it, you fuckers. As a children's
Now, what she's supposed to say is motherfuckers, not beep fuckers. But it was bleeped out. Motherfuckers was bleeped by Stan Huff's wife, who used to be married to Howard Hughes. She objected to the word motherfuckers. So I said, what's wrong with the word motherfuckers? Huff said, this is Gene Peters. Stan said, well,
My purpose in coming to Hollywood is
she doesn't object to the word fuckers. She says it all the time. It's the word mother she objects to. So I'm going to bleep out the word mother from motherfuckers. I always thought it was a bit extreme. It is an X-rated film.
A tree! An actor can learn from everything, including a tree. You must learn to experience the truth of a tree, to make it work for you, to use it, to know its beauty. This tree!
This is Monty Landis.
Damn it!
He was a friend of mine from London, and he was outrageous. Actually, it's a lot of fun.
Oh, Myra, baby, I say to myself, half of all of this will soon be yours.
To me, Raquel is the perfect Myra Breckinridge, and she plays the part absolutely brilliantly. But there was a transvestite who worked for Warhol in the factory, and she very, very much wanted to play the part, and she was brilliant as a girl. The trouble is that she wasn't believable as a man, and I needed someone who could be believable as man and woman. So in the end, I opted for Raquel and Rex Reed.
Where I said I'd see you, kid. I can see your name in lights now.
When John asked to be in the film, he'd written to me before, after seeing Joanna, saying how much he liked Joanna. And I was very flattered that the great John Huston wanted to be in the film. I actually wanted Mickey Rooney to play this part because I thought it'd be a lot more fun. But after seeing the film over and over again many times, I'm now getting used to John's performance. I think he did really well. At the time, I didn't really like his timing, but now I think he's I don't think he could be improved upon.
What's your name, honey?
Myra Breckinridge.
Terrific Irish blarney John Huston had. Very charming, very knowledgeable, very good writer, good friend.
I'm the widow of your late nephew, Myron, and I've come to collect $500,000.
The last time I talked to him, he was doing a picture in Ireland, James Joyce film called The Dead, and he said, this movie is going to be the death of me. And it was.
Gertrude's boy is dead.
Irretrievably.
I'm right sorry to hear that. I never knew Gertrude's boy had such an eye for a fellow.
John Huston was quite careful to observe the etiquette of the floor, but whenever he did make any kind of remark about anything to do with the movie or the filming, the whole crew would, of course, immediately start chortling at any remark he made, which made me extremely nervous. And I think he was aware that I was nervous of having to direct him, and he did his best to make me feel okay, and, you know, kept paying me masses of compliments in this sort of terrific Irish fashion. Oh, you're a genius, and all this sort of nonsense. John took me to El Coyote, where all the waitresses knew him. I think he'd actually had an affair with one or other of them in former days. And we got to know each other really well there. He very, very much wanted to act, and he thought he was a good actor. His father was such an amazing actor that I think John always lived a bit in the shadow of that, because Walter Huston was such a fantastically good actor. And John, of course, is probably one of the world's greatest film directors, up there with Billy Wilder and Hitchcock. I think he wanted to do Myra because it was very unlike anything he'd ever worked on himself. But I was very nervous when he made his campaign to be on the picture and play this part, because obviously a great director like that was waiting in the wings for me to fall over, and the studio would put him in there and let him direct the picture, which obviously was an obsession of mine. Maybe it was a bit unjust of me to think that that's what the studio had in mind, but if you've been working in Hollywood for more than 10 days, you get utterly paranoid. And I think, as Charlie Bukowski says, anyone who's paranoid has got all the facts.
Widow Gertrude's boy out in the dog patch.
I am prepared to accept a position here on the faculty. I took the liberty of picking up a brochure on the way in. Posture and empathy should do nicely. I'm eminently qualified to teach both. Say $1,000 a month.
Posture and empathy is a subject the students badly need at $800 a month. 1,000. Only on condition you don't tell the other teachers how much you're getting.
You have my word, Uncle.
Uncle? We're busy.
Now this gorgeous hunk here is Calvin Lockhart, who was my lead actor in Joanna. I had Donald Sutherland and Calvin and a man called Christian Durm, who was a very good German actor. I just heard, to my great regret and terrific sadness, that Calvin is no longer with us. He's a young man. He died apparently a couple of years ago. I miss him very much. I really loved Calvin. He was a wonderful guy.
Recent most tragic loss.
What did you lose, Dave?
Her husband.
Careless.
Irvin, I'm sure Miss Myra would appreciate a tour around the old corral.
Who that?
I'd ride with you, partner, except my chiropractor's due in to fix my back.
Oh, what's wrong with your back? Is it fatal?
You sure got a sense of humor, Myra. You ought to take it up professionally. I bet around the country there are lots of openings for your style of humor.
See those shoulders broad and glorious. See that smile, that smile.
I was off in Myra, Breckinridge, quite a while before the film went into production. The producer brought me the book and asked me if I'd be interested in doing it, because I was in good odor with Fox, having done Joanna, which had got very good reviews. Didn't make an awful lot of money, but got very good reviews in New York, in Time magazine, and various other papers. And they sort of saw that I could do a film that makes sort of something unattractive could be made attractive. And it was very sweet, Joanna, a very sweet film, very sentimental film, slightly ironic. So I was given the book of Myra Breckinridge by Robert Fryer, who I met in Claridge's in London. And I drove home. I had an old Thunderbird in those days, and as I got out of the car, and the book was in my hand, and as I took the key out of my pocket, about to plunge it into the lock of my front door, the book opened at a well-thumbed page, which was the rape scene of Myra Breckinridge. I was absolutely stunned at that moment. I read this absolutely disgusting, vile scene, but I read it all the way through. And as I got upstairs, I chucked the book in the waste paper basket, and I thought I'd never see this again. And of course, I didn't bother with it. Much, much later, after Gore had written 3 scripts and had collected $1,750,000 from Fox and still hadn't come up with the script they wanted, I'd just been in negotiations with United Artists to do another picture. And I suddenly realized that Michael Laughlin and Leslie Caron, Leslie was going to star in this other picture, they were going to pay me $10,000 for the script. I realized, wait a minute, this isn't going anywhere. So I was very worried about having to do another picture with Michael and with his new wife, Leslie Caron. I looked in the Hollywood Reporter and I saw that Fox was having an awful lot of trouble with finding a script for Myra Breckinridge, and Gore's script were just not working. So I walked across town to David Brown in the story department of Fox. I think I may have had 20 cents in my pocket at the time. 'Twas ever thus. And I went in, I said to David, you know this film that you're having such trouble with, this Myra Breckinridge? He said, oh, don't tell me, this script that Gore gave me is absolutely, God, what am I going to do? I said, well, it's really simple. This is obviously Gore's wet dream. And the problem that has to be resolved is a man with beard stubble on his face wakes up and says, where are my tits? I said, well, if you can solve that problem, you can solve everything. So obviously what it means is a man who's waking up with beard stubble saying, where are my tits, is someone who's been dreaming that he's a girl. So he said, you mean it's all a dream? I said, well, yeah, it's all a film critic's dream. He said, wow, that's the answer. He said, don't move, Mike. And he called Richard Zanuck, and Zanuck got very excited on the phone and said, fly him out tomorrow. So the next day they sent a limo for me, took me to the airport, brought me to LA. And the rest, as they say, is history. Except that when I went in there and I told him the story, and Richard was very keen on my way of doing it, and he said, that's absolutely the answer. That gets us out of all the sordid, pornographic element in this book. He said, of course, we want you to direct it. And I said, Richard, I don't want to direct this, because I used to know Brigitte Bardot very well. We worked together, and she told me, don't go to Hollywood, don't work there, because they eat people like us for breakfast. And I was really scared of having to work in the studio in Hollywood, because all the things I'd heard and dreaded about Hollywood were epitomized by this. So Zanuck said to me, we want you to direct. And I said, I just don't want to direct it. I'll write you a script. He said, but how do I know that anyone's going to understand your script? I said, well, I'll make sure you get a script that anyone can direct. I'll even give you the camera angles if you really want. And he said, no. I said, we like Joanna. We like what you do. We want the option on you to direct. So I said, well, Richard, and I could almost hear Bridget saying to me, don't say yes. Don't say yes. Ne dis pas oui. So I said, look, why don't we have a mutual option, Richard? He said, what's a mutual option? I said, well, you know, if I want to do it, I'll say yes, I'll direct this. If I don't, I'll say no. And if you want me, you can say yes, you want me. If you don't, say no. And it's a mutual option. He leaned forward, looked me straight in the eye, and he said, Mike, a mutual option is no option. And I could see $125,000 skipping out of the window unless I said yes. So I said, you got the option. And then, of course, they took up the option, but they wouldn't give me a date to start filming. So I thought, this is my way out of this picture, because the producers kept wanting to change it, and Gore Vidal was always running around to the producer's office, to Bobby's office, trying to think of ways to put his script back into the film. And of course, the things that Gore wanted from his scripts were the things that the studio didn't want in the film. I had a couple of meetings with Gore, and Bobby would say to me, why won't you put Gore's script into your script? And Gore said, yes, why won't you use more of my script? And I said, because I don't want any of your script in the film. And in fact, your script is the reason that I've been hired so I can put my script, my sense of humor in the film. So Bobby said, well, but some of Gore's script is in your script, Mike. I said, yeah, well, the bits of Gore's script that are in my script, I'll use. But I won't use any of Gore's script. So with that, Gore stood up and flounced out of the room and said, I'm going to have dinner with Paul and Joanne. Coincidentally, I later discovered, a friend of mine told me the other day, that the house I was actually living in Malibu, apparently was the same house that Gore lived in. And I never knew until recently that we had so much in common.
Fags, no offense, sir, but they're all eminently qualified.
Yes, it's a downside for the manager clinic, but their collective knowledge could be inscribed in the I hope to see you all in class ahead of a pin.
She's from New York.
I don't think that Richard and David Brown found Gore's script funny. That was the basic problem. There was a terrific sadness. And it may be because he felt that he had a gay philosophy that he had to inject into the script. I think he may have been trying to make some sort of a statement on behalf of the gay community, or maybe he really did take the Myra argument seriously, that he was really out to reorder society and turn this into a omnisexual, bisexual world. Anyhow, his script wasn't funny. He used a lot of the corny sort of movie images, but it was very tired and old-fashioned, and it didn't make people laugh. But I think he had a mission, and that's what probably the studio didn't like about his script. It's something like that. I saw Gore not so long ago in Ravello by accident after 30 years. And he'd smashed his face, he'd fallen over, and his lip had swollen up like Eddie Murphy in the Nutty Professor. It's a huge, fat lip he got himself. I thought someone had punched him out. Anyway, I saw him. I was with my family, and he was holding this little Post-it note in front of his mouth. And he said, oh, the other infamous person from around here. He said, what, are you here on the grand tour? And he was always looking for a bomb. Sometimes invent them for him. And so anyway, I hadn't seen him for 30 years. And another coincidence Gore and I have is that we share a secretary in London. I happened to be in her office. She hasn't been well. And I went to see her in her office, and blow me down if Gore didn't phone me while I was there. And she said, you'll never guess what. Mike Sarne's here, and he's just off to California to work on the DVD of Myra Breckinridge. He almost screamed at the other end.
Squealer can get away from me. Huh? You know what I do to Squealers? I let him have it in the belly.
Well, I don't care about your credits as long as you're oversexed.
Oh, that's one of my
Lovely Mae West. Now, of course, Rex and Raquel were out to, I think if they could have taken out a contract to knock off Mae, I think they probably would have done. For some reason or other, Rex decided to back up Raquel in all her hostility to Mae. But of course, Mae West was indestructible. The big problem was the black and white costume, because Mae asked me, "What will I be wearing, dear?" So I said, "Well, you know, you're known from the black and white era. Why don't we have you in black and white?" She said, "Oh, I like that, dear." And I said to Raquel, "Well, you're from the Technicolor era. You'll be in color." So Raquel said, "Yes, that's right." And then she realized how good Mae was looking. So the biggest fight we had was when Mae and Raquel were going to meet up, which is when Raquel took one of Thea's costumes, which was purple, two kinds of blue, dark blue and a light blue, and she turned it into a black and white outfit and did it just to upset Mae, so that when they do a scene together, Mae would get really upset. And Mae, she'd been in tears, funnily enough, and I went into the dressing room and she said, "Why is this little girl doing this to me, dear? Why is she behaving like this? I don't understand it," she said. But I suppose that's what actors do. I've noticed since then that actors very, very often imitate each other when they're working together and try to outdo each other doing the same thing. I think I was probably one of the few people that got to know her without all her makeup on. And when you saw her sitting down in a chair with her little Kirby pins in her hair, she just looked like everybody's granny. You just wanted to sit and kiss her. She was this tough old lady, was not the real Mae at all. Maybe she was when she was younger. I hope you're looking at Farrah Fawcett's knickers right now. This is the best part of this scene. 1, 2, 3, wait for it. Now, isn't that nice? That's just for the Conoscenti. Good line, that.
I've never heard of any of these people.
But my dear, they were unique, truly mythic.
Now, these brilliant costumes were designed by Theodora Van Runkel, who actually would do drawings which she'd color in watercolor with Raquel in them. And then when the costumes showed up and Raquel put them on, they were exactly like the drawings. Thea is probably one of the world's greatest costume designers. I mean, isn't it absolutely beautiful?
Well, yes. I mean, it's only natural.
Natural? Oh, my dear Marianne, don't you realize it? Well,
Farrah Fawcett wanted to be grumpy, you see, but her smile, I said, you've got to keep smiling, because in those days, the end of the 60s, girls used to smile a lot. In fact, California was an extremely smiley place. It stopped being that way recently. I don't know why. I don't think it's got anything to do with September 11. I think that people just lost their cheerfulness in the last 20 or 30 years. But then everybody smiled, and Farrah had a terrific smile, and so I made her smile through her entire performance until right at the end.
Well, I scarcely dared mention Ella Mae Morris in the Cow Cow Boogie.
I must say you showed remarkable restraint.
And 4 children. I mean, it's not enough that she and that ape merely want to reproduce themselves.
I honestly think, without wanting to pat myself on the back too much, that Raquel Welch has never given a better performance. She really took direction terrifically well. And she actually is a good actress, which you can't say for Rex Reed. He was never an actor, but the good thing about Rex Reed is he's utterly credible as Rex Reed. He's utterly credible as a gay movie critic who wants to be a woman.
Preparing humanity for its next stage.
Bravo. Also bullshit.
The fun thing is, of course, that Rex, when he got the part, he said to David Brown, "I'm not going to play a homosexual." So David Brown said, "Of course not. The part's are homosexual, but you won't be playing it." Right? So in the end, Rex said, "And I'm not going to say, 'Where are my tits? Where are my tits?'" So David Brown said, "You will say, 'Where are my tits? Where are my tits?' Or I'll get someone to do a voiceover and I'll have someone screaming down the hospital corridor, 'Where are my tits? Where are my tits?'" So Rex did it. He was told very reluctantly.
Forgive me. I just want to make you happy. That's all.
The studio actually quite liked the idea of Rex replaying the part because he fitted it like a glove. I mean, he's not a very nice person, but he's right for the part. Look at him. The studio is, I suppose, a mixture of different kind of personal prejudices. There's not one monolithic studio thought here. Richard Zanuck was obviously the head of the studio, and what he said goes, but he was very influenced by sort of, no-brain people like Stan Huff, who was the head of production at the time.
I forgive you. I forgive you.
Good morning.
Now, this scene here is quite interesting because this is one of the days that Raquel Welch decided not to show up for work because she was grumpy about the fact that Mae West was getting a bit more attention than her, and she resented deeply the fact that Mae got star billing over hers. So I was left with Rex Reed, who was dying to do as much filming as possible, and Farrow, who had nothing to do. So I said, Raquel's not going to show up to work. Tell you what we'll do, we'll invent a scene, because Rex was a foodie. I said, "Rex, you're a foodie, aren't you?" He said, "Yes, I am a foodie." It reminds him of his mum or something. So I thought, well, why don't we do the sex scene all about food, and she can be your sort of mother figure there. And of course, when Raquel found out about it, she was furious.
It's so good. And a big glass of milk. Can we have some chicken?
Johnny Weissmuller, the Arctic Tarzan, still provides the last word on soft man's relationship to hard environment. In Tarzan and the Amazons, 1945.
Tarzan and the Amazons? You mean you like that?
As I've just indicated, it was a masterpiece.
But it's trash. I mean, there isn't a single moment of truth. I mean, it's not, real.
Whatever real means, is that necessarily good? Could the real Christ have possessed a fraction of the radiance of H.B. Warner in The First King of Kings, or Jeffrey Hunter in the second? At any rate, back to Johnny Weissmuller, who swung out of the trees into our hearts with his leading lady, Brenda Joyce. The only contemporary figure we can point to is James Bond, who invariably ends up with a blowtorch aimed at his crotch.
Miss Breckinridge,
Ah, Uncle Buck.
may I have a word with you?
Well, I'm in the middle of a class.
Only take a minute.
All right. This won't take long.
Miss Breckinridge, what you're doing here is downright unwholesome, undermining all my good work.
Do you think lying to people is good for them? Do you think telling someone who's got cancer that he doesn't need the operation is the right thing to do?
Well, if he's had the operation and the case is terminal, why, if you wanted to be happy, wouldn't you? Have a happiest frame of mind.
Well, I can only conclude that you agree. What you have assembled here are the national dregs, the misfits and neurotics, in short, the fuck-ups of our culture.
That ain't so. They are the carefully selected candidates for future stardom.
Bullshit.
You can't talk to me like that, young lady. I'll have you out of here so fast your hair will curl.
You just try it, your mother, and I'll take this place away from you. Lock, stock, and empathy, class.
You watch your step, young lady. For taking this place away from me. Why, I don't even know whether that man you claim you married, that fag, son of a bitch, was ever really even married to that fag.
That, students, was a classic stage lab delivered so as to give the impression that the subject has been hit very hard in the mouth. It was first developed by Patricia Collins in The Little Foxes, 1941. Oh, thank you for the demonstration, Uncle Buck.
Hello, Miss Dan Allen. I thought this was your car. Anything I can do for you?
Come to think of it, yes. There's a car been following me for quite some time.
Want me to bust him?
No, introduce him. Oh, and don't forget to remind me of the policeman's balls. I mean the police show.
I wish to see Signorina Van Ellen. I have a message for her I bring from Italy.
Your name, please?
Mario Giuseppe Leonardo, Guastaferre Stinginate Pastriani.
Have a seat.
Actually, nobody particularly wanted to be in the film apart from John Huston and Raquel Welch. But May, I wrote to May because I realized at a certain point that Raquel couldn't carry the entire movie. And even with John Huston, it's not a one to see. And I realized that Mae West did have the charisma and the reputation and the style and the star quality, everything required to carry a picture. Whereas Raquel, God bless her, and she is a good actress in this, I didn't think she had the power. So I wrote to Mae West saying how much I wanted her to be in the film. And she was sitting in the back of her car with her spiritualist because she had a spiritual advisor. And she gave him my letter. And he held it in his hand and he started to shake and tremble and got very hot and flustered. And he said, May, this man who's written you this letter, he's very determined, May. You have to do this film. It's fate. He is very determined. That's why she said, okay. So then she calls me up after a while and she says, dear, they don't want to give me my fee. I said, well, how much is that supposed to be? And she said, well, I want $350,000 and they only want to give me $275,000. I thought, wow, there's another great opportunity for me to leave the picture. I said, well, May, I've got a good idea. You just tell them that if they don't give you $350,000, I'm not doing the film. Thinking, naively that maybe they'd let me go. But unfortunately, they didn't. They gave me a start date. In fact, when this film started, they kept delaying the beginning of it. Bobby Fryer and various sort of acolytes he had around him kept thinking of ways to delay the start of the film. And they employed this writer who's inserted all these sort of lines about faggots and all about the politics of Southern California, all utterly irrelevant nonsense that was shoved into the film to try make it more realistic in his mind. And they kept on giving me these absolutely useless rewrites. And meanwhile, I wasn't getting paid. And then I discovered in the contract that I actually could insist on having a shooting date. I said to the studio, look, unless you give me a shooting date, I can leave town because I'm not an American and I've been paid for the script. And as far as I'm concerned, my job is done. And I packed my bags, told my wife to get ready. As I was just about to leave the house, the studio sent me a note with the shooting date. So they took it up and we had to go forward with it. Some days I had to actually rewrite scenes because they just didn't work. Because I was given lines at the last minute that weren't working. And what happened during the shooting, although scenes had been approved, At the last minute, people might turn around and say they didn't want to do certain things or say certain things. And every day on this film is one of the most fraught pictures I've ever worked on.
Goddamn disgrace, Buck. Man can't take his family to the movies without seeing some kind of filth. Yeah, I know. Now, listen, Charlie, you got to get this bitch off my neck. She's making my life a living hell. Maybe you could plant drugs on her.
I mean filth, Buck. I saw this picture where people were fornicating.
Really doing it?
The God's honest truth, Buck. I've seen it 3 times, I tell you.
Oh, 3 times.
You'll note it's relatively irrelevant dialogue. See, about some kind of filth and story about pornographic movies. I don't know what relevance it has to anything.
Corrupting our youth. I've seen things, Buck, that would turn your stomach. It's not your basic naked women or the fornication. It's the fags, the dykes, and every kind of perversion.
Every day, some new bit of sabotage would be discovered. I'd have a scene painted and dressed, and the next day it was painted a different color and dressed differently. And apparently Bobby would go around the set and think of ways to sabotage what I was doing. And maybe he'd been sent by Gore to do it. I never worked out why he didn't want to work together with me. It got so bad that I went to see Richard and I said, look, let him go or let me go, Richard. One of us has to go. And Richard thought it was hilariously funny that the two of us were at daggers drawn. In fact, Bobby and I got on actually quite well. But for some reason or other, he did everything he could to change my view of the film. We did not see eye to eye. And all I can think of is that, as my friend Mark says, they had an agenda to promote a gay philosophy or promote gay freedom or some serious message that they wanted to put across in this film. And I always saw this film as comedy. The whole idea of men dressing up as women in England is quite well established in pantomime. The first job I ever did was singing the chorus of a pantomime, and there were 2 ugly sisters who dressed beautifully. One was a guy called Danny LaRue and his partner, whose name I've forgotten at the moment. So to me, the idea of men dressing up in drag in very glamorous outfits has always been a way of having a good laugh, and it's traditional in show business. It's what we call camp. Now, in America, they use the term campy, which doesn't have any relevance for me. But the word camp and high camp, which is an adjective and a noun, is not specifically gay or homosexual, although obviously gays and homosexuals are camp. The Queen of England is camp. The Pope is camp. Anything that's theatrical, overdressed, overdone, opera is camp, ballet is camp. And so this film is what we would call high camp in England, but not campy. Campy is what I think an American would say for a gay guy is running around like a little fairy. He's sort of campy. But there's none of that in Myra, because I think that's irrelevant to the story and to the comedy. And I think part of the problem is that thing called campy is what maybe Bobby wanted to insert into the film. I remember, it only occurs to me now that that may have been his mission. He loved a show that was on in New York called The Boys in the Band. And his favorite line, which was, "Who do you have to fuck to get a drink round here?" was absolutely the way he saw this film. And he'd often quote it to me, saying that's what he thought was the level of comedy that should be in this film. And it wasn't actually what I was trying to do.
Good condition, Rusty.
Well, work out, son. Not like our two are used to.
Yes. Would you face the wall with your arms at your side, hands pressed very flat against the wall? Now. Hands flat against the wall.
You're jerking my pants.
Will you
now.
do as I say? Now, I believe the prop is a little lower down, around the small of the back. I'd say around the lumbar region. Aha! Gotcha!
Is that the Chattanooga Choo-Choo? Yes, yes. Whack it up. Or you can give me a Chattanooga Choo-Choo.
Depending on which actor you talk to, you got a completely different impression. I think some of them were terrifically professional and enjoyed it. Others tended to have an opinion of one kind or another. Some of them understood the film and thought it was great fun. Others thought it was something like Valley of the Dolls or an exploitation picture. I suppose a lot of people, the actors and also other people involved in the film, didn't really understand that this was supposed to be broad comedy, because Valley of the Dolls was based on the idea of sex. Russ Meyer's films are funny, but they are based on the idea of something that is supposed to be sexy. And the so-called tackiness was part of the fun. This film is not meant to be sexy. Myra Breckinridge is not meant to be a sexy film. Myra Breckinridge is supposed to be a comic look at the idea of a man who would like to be a woman. And I don't think of that necessarily as a gay obsession. I think a lot of men say to themselves sometimes, I wonder what it would be like to be a woman, as opposed to gays who do mutilate themselves and actually do go through this awful operation, and because of this mad, very sad determination to change their sex. And of course, I met many, many, many transsexuals while we were trying to cast this film. Of course, I tried to use men who were on the way to having a sex change, or some of them had a sex change. And I really obviously thought that that's the way to do the film. But the transsexuals who were from the factory couldn't play the man's part, however much they wanted to. They were just not believable as men, funnily enough. They'd gone so far. If I had found a man that was a convincing, glamorous woman, which there are plenty of them, especially Vietnamese and Oriental males, I went trolling around the clubs with Bobby Fryer, and we saw these amazing transsexuals and transvestites, which were more female and feminine than any woman you could ever meet, but impossible to believe as men, that they had been men before. This is the extraordinary thing about it. And really, to make Myra Breckinridge work, you needed a man that was passable as a woman, as an attractive woman, and believable as a man. And unfortunately, because I couldn't do that, we cast it with two people.
Marianne.
I would obviously have preferred to shoot it for real, but that's why making it a dream works for me. And I think now people accept it. Maybe at the time we made the picture, they didn't accept the idea that you can play the same part with two people. But since then, the 60s and the 70s have happened. People are a bit more receptive to adventurous ideas.
Busted?
The first time wasn't his fault at all, but he was on parole, and this time they'll really put him away.
Nonsense. I do nothing of the kind. You just leave that to me.
Why? Is there something you can do?
Why, of course, my dear, it's only the law. Ah, Tisha Van Allen.
Kids and I sure appreciate these visits to Tisha, particularly the scholarship boys. By the way, speaking of the scholarship fund.
They say she goes to bed with all the actors she represents.
Oh, I'll talk about that another time.
Yes. She must be a marvelous woman.
My son loved the film Fight Club, and I didn't actually get it. And he said it's so easy to understand. He's like in his late 20s. And he said it's so easy to understand. It's such a great film that's what happens to people. They think they are one thing and they're really another. And when the hero of Fight Club starts punching himself all over the place, my son said, that's perfectly understandable. He said, any young person would get that. And I think probably nowadays people will get the fact that Rex and Raquel are the same. They're on the screen at the same time. And it has similarities with Fight Club. And when you think that nowadays we have The Matrix, and a lot of films have accepted the premise that a film is a dream, and you can inhabit your dream or stand back from your dream, as we do when we dream. We can see ourselves in a dream. We can rationalize when you're in a dream, I wonder what's going to happen next. In fact, we can even direct our dreams and react to things that are happening in the dream and saying to ourselves, gosh, what should I do now? And I think people do accept the idea of films being dreams. And I once wrote a short story about how a young director robs an old director of his dreams and then films them, and the old director gets very depressed and commits suicide. Because dreams have a kind of heightened reality about them. And of course you have dreams of different qualities. But I wanted Myra to have that bright, technicolor, brilliantly lit aspect that you sometimes find with certain dreams that seem more real than real, and at the same time you know it's not happening.
A golden phallus. And let me tell you, someday we'll have our own stable of studs.
A steady stream of sturdy studs.
Oh, a boy bank where credit is always good. Sort of a lay-a-day plan.
God bless America.
God help America. A lay-a-day. That reminds me, I simply must go.
Identical twins.
I'm the only one that knows the difference. Yeah, get me Judge Frederick D. Cannon. Keep ringing the judge's chambers. He sleeps there between sessions. Well, never mind how I know.
No nation can long endure the onslaught of godless communism which permeates the very warp and woof of Southern California. Eternal alertness to what your neighbor is up to is the price of freedom. Miss Breckinridge, keep your eye on him at all times. And remember, the commies will use every infernal device known to man to worm their way into our churches and supermarkets.
Now this scene here, this speech, was written by David Giler, the National Rifle Association.
With this in mind, we may yet curb the lawlessness and degenerate values as expressed by the Kremlin and upheld by the Supreme Court of the United States.
Now that speech, I keep hearing these left-wing speeches when I go out with people in California, especially recently with after the Iraq War, and it seems to me that I'm having to fight the battle of the Democrats and the Republicans in this film, which is to me so irrelevant and have nothing to do with what Myra Breckinridge is all about. But what can you do?
Say, Ollie.
What?
What time is it?
Nearly past.
Thank you, Ollie.
after filming, we'd go and see Toby Dammit, which is a Fellini film, and it's called Spirits of the Dead, Tales of Mystery and Imagination, and Fellini actually gave me my own 16mm copy. But the influence of Fellini and the idea of dreams that you see in Toby Dammit influenced me very, very much when I was making this film. It was the language I was trying to use to tell this story. And you'll see that even this concert scene here has similarities with the concert scene in Toby Dammit.
That shouldn't bother you, Rusty.
Well, the whole idea makes me want to puke. A man should act like a man.
Of course, Mae insisted on doing a song in the film, 2 songs in the film, which infuriated practically everybody but me. Raquel was absolutely livid that Mae, who was supposed to be an agent, is also a singer. And they even tried to sabotage her singing. So I evolved for a sort of a Rex Harrison style of singing, which is half-spoken, and yet she hits certain big notes at times. And you'll see that it works really well, because when she tried to sing every note, it didn't work.
Take light.
Yeah.
Come on, do something just for the thrill of it. Make every point while you pace every journey.
See, and there she sings. Terrific. What a star.
You gotta taste all the fruit.
Of course, she wrote most of her lines, I think 90% of her lines. There were more scenes she wrote, which I was obliged to cut, which I really didn't like having to cut. I wrote lines for her, but I must say that everything she did worked. The lines she wrote, the songs she sang. This is a true professional, tried and tested on the road. That's what star quality is, I suppose. But of course, Rex and Raquel didn't see it that way.
I've got some real good loving and I've got some in store. When I get through throwing it on, you gotta come
I
back.
choreographed this scene here.
Pills and things will come by the dozen. That ain't nothing but drugstore loving. Good looking thing loving. Light your candle, cause baby, I'm sure how to handle. Yes, I am. Actions speak louder.
And when you think about it now, how much poorer this film would have been without this marvelous person.
I want to prove every word I say. I want to love you, baby. I'm gonna have you every day.
I think today this film is being received very well. At the time, it wasn't received very well. But I think there's an awful lot of backbiting and backstabbing. Rex and Gore were on television every single day, assailing the gossip columnists, Joyce Haber and that other blonde one. Every day there was some knocking piece about me, and I didn't have the brains to get a PR man going out there sort of defending me. When my wife was pregnant, they were saying I looked like a wolf and my child would be a Rosemary's Baby. That's what they thought was sort of fair comment in those days. And all those stories were planted by Bobby Fryer and Gore.
I still think a guy should call checks.
Ah,
How's it going, girls?
just great, sweetie.
Wait a minute. Can I say?
That's right, sweetie.
There's a cut here that the National Film Theatre thinks is one of the most significant in the movie. They say if you blink that, you miss the best cut of the film.
How's your poker game going, sweetie?
Ah, great. Great.
The whole idea of cuts from old movies was brought to me by my friend who used to run the light show at the Whiskey A Go Go on Sunset. He used to raid all the trash cans around all the studios and take out all these clips of films and rushes and cut them all together into coherent storylines. So one person would draw a gun, shoot another person, and as he dropped down dead, another figure would fall off a cliff. And as that figure fell off a cliff, he cut to another film with a body falling into the water. Then you'd go underwater and see, and it was a wonderful, coherent storyline cut from different movies. And I realized that one movie could talk to another movie. It was like a grave robbing, I suppose, taking all the ghouls and the zombies, taking them out of the grave and let them all talk to each other and communicate. And as long as you get your eye lines right, you've created a completely different alternative reality. And I was so impressed. I said to him, we're going to use that technique in Myra Breckinridge. So that's the reason that this is used to such an extent in Myra Breckinridge, that you have a film critic who lives with these images from all the films he sees. America, and my aim was really to try and make the cuts and the intercuts as seamless as possible. Of course, it hasn't completely worked, and the eye lines don't always work, because when I was editing the film, I was getting an awful lot of stick, and every cut, every remark, every bit of script, I had to battle a whole gang of objectors. James Cresson was interviewed after the film was over. He was Bobby's assistant. He actually said we should have been sacked, not Mike Sarne. We did everything we could to sabotage him, and I don't know why they never got rid of us.
Beef teriyaki. Oh, where's the chow mein? What's that?
Swedish massage.
What do you do with it?
I beat you with it.
Does it hurt?
Beat your ass.
Something's wrong here someplace.
Rusty?
Gee, it's really nice that Letitia Van Allen wants to represent Mary Ann, isn't it?
Yes, very nice.
At the time, I wasn't trying to be particularly original. I just thought it worked after seeing what Stan did at Whiskey A Go Go. I just realized that it did work, that images do work if they're properly intercut. I don't really much like the habit people have when they make commercials these days of getting dead movie stars to advertise someone's product. Although here I've got movie stars, Laurel and Hardy and all the rest of them, sympathizing and interacting with my actors because they're all part of the movie world. And at the time I thought it was a bit cheeky of me, but I really don't much like the fact that you can buy Charlie Chaplin and he'll advertise a pot noodle for you, or Marilyn Monroe will advertise a fountain pen. I think you can just buy the image of Marilyn or Charlie Chaplin or whoever, and then you'll make those actors advertise something that they had no intention of advertising. I think there's something rather wrong with it. It's sort of immoral in a way, but I suppose it's all my fault that they do it.
Guess I'm full of hoes.
Oh, well, that's all right.
I mean, the premise here, I suppose, is that Myra Breckinridge is convinced that the great movie stars of the 40s and 50s are on the same page as her, that they do, in their performances, sympathize with her philosophy. And she believes that those movie stars and the parts they played are all coming from the same place. And the modern world, as exemplified by younger actors and everything from The Method and Randos, the Deans, and all the rest of it, are from the wrong generation, and they don't understand what the great movie makers who worked between the late 30s to the mid 50s, they would be shocked by what happens these days.
Well, what's the matter?
I don't know. I guess I'm, what they call peace shy.
Oh, well, don't be. Just relax. We have plenty of time.
Of course, when you look back at the old movie moguls, they were quite as opportunistic as producers are today. In fact, I don't think the animals changed at all. I don't even think movies have really changed that much. American cinema still has that German expressionism. It still lives on. The style of movie we have hasn't really actually changed that much. The technology's changed a little bit, but I can still see Murnau and Fritz Lang in movies today as I did 10 or 20 years ago. And this is shot in an old-fashioned way, as you can see.
All I want you to do is loosen your belt and say, ah. Now take a deep breath.
The budget of this film came out at about $4 million. They'd spent quite a lot of money before we started. I think Gore had about $2 million by the end of it all. I was criticized for having gone over budget, as if, no one had ever done that before. I think probably it may have gone a few $100,000 over budget. But to expect a movie like this to be made for less than $4 million sounds a bit extraordinary to me. Where's a picture like this today? What would it be, $40 million or $20 million? Obviously it didn't cost that much. It was all shot in the studio. I think it was 8 or 9 weeks. We shot an extra week. I think we broke for Christmas, and then we did an extra week's shooting, which I don't think we even used some of that material.
Now then, bottoms up. Now you must be very still. I don't want that thermometer broken, Rusty. Tell me, have you ever something?
Obviously, a lot of the style of this film was developed in order to make this scene acceptable. The sine qua non of Myra Breckinridge is the scene you're watching now, the rape scene that you couldn't dispense with. It was there, it was part of the film, it was a shocking part of the film, it was the first thing I ever read of the book, it was the reason I didn't want to do the film in the first place, because of this scene. Then my creativity was stretched to its absolute limit, finding a way to euphemistically describe this scene without ever showing it graphically. Now, when Gore wrote his script, he had trains going through tunnels, of course, and all the corny images. Oh, I didn't invent, the cutaways and the euphemisms and the metaphors required to tell this sort of rather awesome event. I think probably using clips and reactions that take your mind off what you're looking at was probably the only way to do it. Gore wanted to dwell on the subject of this anal rape and sodomy. He wanted to keep going back to images which reminded the audience of that. Not so long ago, I was at a film festival in Paris called L'Étrange Festival, where they showed Myra Breckinridge, and the guy who ran the festival said all Gore's books finish up with an act of sodomy. That's the bottom line, if you like to call it. And apparently it's the raison d'etre of all Gore's books. That even Ben-Hur is all about a gay relationship between Ben and, what's his name, Messina or Sala, or whatever his name is. And I think Gore's ethic has always been giving you this alternative reality.
I tried to explain it to you, but you wouldn't listen. So I'm afraid it will require a practical demonstration.
Oh my God, Jesus, you'll kill me.
I won't kill you, Rusty. I'll just educate you. You and the rest of America. Must be demonstrated to you practically that there's no
Now
such
here,
thing as
we've got the action that says she's strapping on a dildo. But of course, she's not strapping on a dildo. In fact, she's strapping on a pair of 6 guns. So the euphemism is there. If you look carefully, you'll see.
finishing touches.
Oh, God.
I reckon none of you northern folks ever heard of Texas cowhand making love to his gal.
It's the euphemisms I'm trying to go with rather than the actual act. But here, of course, it's pretty unmistakable. Sorry about that.
That's what I call disgusting.
When people see this film, you'll find the women are enjoying it more than the men. And they tend to laugh their socks off. The National Film Theatre not so long ago when it was shown, and the women in the audience enjoyed this scene tremendously, funnily enough. Because women are allowed to express their dirty minds these days, which they never were in the old days. They're all supposed to be little ladies, but girls these days are a lot more outrageous since they've been liberated. So I suppose Gore did something right. He liberated the women, if not the men.
Uncle Sam, here I
This is from Dante's Inferno, as you can see. Now, for me, I brought in an element of sadness there with Dante's Inferno and here from Swan Lake, because to me, there's a terrific feeling of sadness underlying all this comedy. And you'll see the end of this scene is pretty sad, which I think is really the underlying basis of the word gay, is that gayness is a cover for sadness. And maybe I'm wrong about it, and I'm quite ready to be corrected, but I think there's the sadness of life is covered up by gayness. There are people in England who call gays sads. So I wanted a very sad feeling to the aftermath of the rape scene. One of the strange things is that the gay community, I thought it was just the transsexuals and the transvestites would enjoy it, because there's an element of the gay society which Gore inhabits and Bobby Fryer was part of, which passes for straight, if you like. Rex Reed is part of it, and Gore, and so as if to say, we are not screaming fags, we are just like everybody else, we just happen to be gay, but if you don't notice, it doesn't really matter. And they felt that my outrageous take on gayness was completely wrong, and I shouldn't have treated it in this way. I shouldn't have been so outrageous. But I've found since then that the gay community of all shades approves of the film. And I'm getting emails all the time about how much they love the film and how they review the film again and again and how they swap notes and how there's even websites set up amongst themselves where people discuss the film and the logic behind it. So I think I've been vindicated because the gays I know have a lot of admiration for the film because of its, I think because of its fresh approach, because I've tried to be fresh about it and cheerful about it. And if you like, I've tried to strip any element of guilt out of the story, which I think there was a residual guilt element that you feel subconsciously with Gore. And this, I felt, was irrelevant to the plot. And the confidence, the outrageous confidence of Myra Breckinridge is based on the fact she doesn't give a shit, which is why it's refreshing. And I think the gay community enjoys the fact that she's very, very happy about being who she is and doing what she does.
What's the matter?
Rusty's gone again.
Gone? Where?
Oh no, just don't understand.
Well, let me fix you a drink. It'll soothe your nerves. Didn't he give you any...
I mean, why Rex plays this scene with this sort of disapproving air, I never quite understood, but I think it's because he wants us to think that he's not really gay. So he's acting as if he doesn't approve of what Myra or what Raquel is doing. And he has this funny look on his face that was coming up in a minute. I never quite understood. He raises an eyebrow thinking he's Dirk Bogarde or something. I don't know. But he sort of behaves rather strangely in this scene. And I didn't actually understand why he was behaving like that. But I let him do his thing, really. I didn't give him much direction.
Of course you will. You'll see everything will work out just fine.
I'm so worried. I just can't go back there.
Oh, you don't have to. You can stay here with me.
Oh, no, I couldn't.
I insist.
Are you sure?
Absolutely. It's really no bother at all. Really, dear, just find you something to wear. Now, let's see.
I think that Rex always wanted to push the idea. See the eyebrow? Well, this is very Dirk Bogarde. I think Rex has seen all the Dirk Bogarde films that were ever made. I think Rex always wanted to be thought of as heterosexually interested in Marianne. I mean, he's in denial. Denial is not a river in Egypt. I mean, Rex really is in denial. He was in denial throughout the entire film because I think in the back of his mind, he thought he would be a movie star or something. And that's why he'd said to David Brown, I'm not playing a homosexual.
He's only a man and not good enough for you.
That's the only reason I can give for his peculiar performance.
No shit.
He didn't want to seem as if he was approving.
Myra, this is Letitia. Rusty's at the beach house with me right now. I'm calling to say thanks.
Oh, I'm so glad you liked him. Is it the right color?
Well, I guess so. It's the usual color. Didn't you ever make it with him?
Not in the classic way, no. Well, I hope he's...
Now that shot obviously is taken from Salvador Dali's Crucifixion. You can tell that, can't you?
Oh, well, good night. Come on, honey. Let's take another trip around the world.
Dolly, I've known you ever since you was a corn and a spit. Gee, I've watched you become the dream of every parent this side of San Diego.
George Firth, great comic actor, and a big friend of Bobby Fryer's.
Thanks, Uncle Bucky. You know what I've always thought of you ever since you did that morning television show on ABC. I can tell you now, Uncle Buck, that, well, you've always been my idol, and I've lost more fights over you at UCLA than anything else.
I'm very moved to hear you say that, very moved. Also, I'm pleased to hear you're a fighter.
This film was always going to be X-rated. I mean, you couldn't have... The subject matter itself in those days would have made it X-rated, with or without the rape scene. Beyond the Valley of the Dolls was X-rated. So I think maybe, Richard Sallett was going through a particularly mischievous period in his life or something. Maybe he was going through his own personal change of life at the end of... I think he was in his 30s in those days. I thought that a lot of the films that didn't do well at the end of the 60s and mid 70s now have been all turned into cult movies like Myra, and it seems that not only me but Richard Zanuck was ahead of his time. When I was it's a story I've told a couple of times, but a few years ago I had lunch with, not so long ago, with Billy Wilder. He said to me, he said, you remind me of that story about the two directors. One meets the other director, he says, you were always 10 years ahead of your time. And the other director says 20. I said, Billy, in my case, it's 30.
Like a straight shooter.
When you two lovebirds are finished, perhaps you'll tell me what lousy, dirty trick you're up to now.
No lousy tricks, Mrs. Breckinridge. I am simply here to defend my client's interest, which in this case is your alleged claim to like half the value of this Westwood property.
Alleged?
Alleged. That marriage certificate is an out-and-out phony.
Oh. It isn't easy being a woman, Uncle Buck. Especially when you have to fight your own family for what's rightfully yours.
Honey, honey, honey. We don't want to take what's yours. That's the last thing on our mind. But we got to make sure you're entitled to it. You might be an impersonator saying you are who you are.
And after Gertrude gave you that $200 back in Philadelphia to pay for the abortion of the daughter of that Rexall.
No, I mean, you've got to admit, John plays a son of a bitch absolutely immaculately, doesn't he? I mean, look at the way he plays this. And that's probably why he loves this part so much, or loved this part so much, is that the tough charm. Look at the glint in his eye. When he smokes, look at the look on his face, the shifty look. I mean, John knows all aspects of reality. There's that marvelous story about when he had that, was it his Mexican wife or something, and I don't know which wife it was, and he had this chimpanzee, and she said, it was shitting all over the place. Like Mae West has these, used to have these chimpanzees, and they used to shit all over the place. And she said, either that monkey goes or I go. And he said, you know, my answer's going to have to be, honey. Now, the girl in the chair is the awful Genevieve Waite, who I love and hate at the same time. And she was the star of Joanna.
Mundo, Montag here. Yeah? Oh, Myra. How are you, kid? How's your teeth? Get out now.
Listen.
So nice,
Myra, dental health is mental health. Will you try to remember that?
To rape me. I had... Oh,
what?
how can you...
I mean, talk absolute nonsense, but for some reason or other, the studio accepted Genevieve as the star of Joanna. I wanted any other sexy girl. And my producer at the time said, you can't have any of these other girls because you fancy them. So I'm going to make sure you have a girl you don't fancy, because then you'll be better. And I said, yeah, but it'd be a better film if I do fancy the girl. He said, not at all. So anyway, Genevieve has been a part of my life ever since then. And she's a terrific girl. She came to stay with me when we were living in Malibu, and John Phillips was in my beach house. And she said, I really like John. And I said, well, if you really like him, why don't you just leave? And so he came and he said to me, Genevieve's gone. And I said, yes. Anyway, they had a really wild relationship, the two of them.
Which Mr. Flagler?
Mr. Flagler, Jr.?
Take it, June. In the bathroom, you idiot.
I have to go to the bathroom.
You get to the movies much, Doctor? I say, did you get to the movies much, Doctor? I was wondering what you thought about all the pornography we had.
Pornography.
I was wondering what you thought about it in our movies.
I've never seen any of your movies.
I mean our current American picture, which is loaded with smut.
Smut, yes. Listen, attention, everybody. As you all know, that was a call from our New York office.
What do they say?
Oh, Dad, before we get into that, I think it might be nice at this time to put everyone in the picture as to the background.
Would you tell him to
shut up and get to the point?
The point is, Mrs. Breckinridge, that no record of your husband's death exists in New York City or state.
Steve, right? Just remember, Myra, these people don't screw around. Everything's legal and above board, not like in some places I can mention south of the border down Mexico way.
Listen, I say the man's dead, you unmitigated shit. And that means he's dead. Oh, I'll admit his body was never found, that's true. He died in a car accident outside the Bank of America. Beverly Hills branch.
There is not one iota of evidence that he is dead, and we are not going to pay you one single penny.
Steve, right?
Randolph, I believe the moment of truth has finally arrived.
Go get him.
Gentlemen, I am Myra Breckinridge. Uncle Buck, your fag nephew, became your niece 2 years ago in Copenhagen and is now free as a bird and happy in being the most extraordinary woman in the world.
And I thought I fell in love with a man.
That's the ball game.
When the film was knocked by everybody when it came out, I actually ran away. I was a coward. I skipped out of town. Zanuck said to me, are you going to buy your house in Malibu? And it was actually up for $130,000, which wasn't expensive in those days. When I could see that, that the sharks were out to gobble me up, I thought I'd just better get out of town. And that's exactly what I did. So I wasn't even there for the screening in New York.
I never slipped.
The initial negative reaction to the film, the critics, or you know how critics are always the most conventional people, like actors, you know, they pretend to be so middle class and so shockable and so much part of the lowest common denominator. I don't think anyone was really shocked at all. But they like the idea that everything has to be correct, and they like costume dramas and actors who behave themselves, and this was obviously a bit new for people. People were really confused. I think they thought that this was supposed to be an exploitation film. It was supposed to be a sex film, and that was never my intention. Everything I did in this film was try to avoid obvious sex exploitation, because that would lead us to perdition and damnation. So I was trying to be funny and not particularly sexy. Maybe I was wrong. But I didn't want to be salacious. And maybe if I'd been a bit more salacious, maybe the critics would have liked it more.
It's finished.
And maybe Gore was right. Maybe if it had been homosexual and salacious, people would have liked it more. Because gay-friendly films do usually get good reviews.
I thought it was violent.
They don't make much money, but they do get good reviews. I think a lot of reviewers are gay, actually, which is why Rex is so well typecast.
Never grabs you like the other boys. Oh, you are an angel, Myra, and I do love you. I really do. I just can't, you know?
Yes, of course, I know.
If only there were some man like you. I'd really fall, I would. But not like this. If only you were a man.
I'll get you this time. It's a dangerous thing,
Now, Rex wrote these lines for himself. I thought he did a really good job.
Well, now it's 8 bars and out, honey. You were no more than a Linda Darnell paper doll. A Disney cow that got over the fence. You got ambitious. You were great in CinemaScope and Technicolor, but you can't cut it in black and white.
At the same time, his disapproval of Myra strikes the wrong chord, of course, because in fact he is Myra. But it sort of works story-wise, so I left it there, because you have to close out the film, and Myra trying to seduce Mary Ann, making him jealous. You know, it's an interesting complication. Here's my leitmotif from Fellini's Toby Dammit.
You will remember day in the desert.
I remember.
Well, I think it has a resonance today, and I hope that people will get it. I think probably if this DVD works for people, it will work because it has a contemporary sensibility, and like Fight Club, people do understand. And there is something quite fascinating about going into one's subconscious and coming out again a wiser person because one has been there. Now here, obviously, we're supposed to be back in Kansas.
Where are my tits? Where are my tits?
Good morning.
This scene I wanted to shoot in the welfare hospital downtown Los Angeles, but they insisted on doing it in the studio. It's a little bit too theatrical for me. I wanted this to be a rather sort of grotty reality and not a sort of colourful studio set, but maybe we can do something about that.
Huh? Are we conscious?
This obviously was always meant to be in black and white, this scene.
The Lost Moment.
Martin Gable, 1949.
47.
47, that's silly of me.
The Heiress was 1949.
Yeah, that's Willie Wyler. Yeah, I thought of that because of Henry James.
Yes.
Don't you get a lot of rest before you start social?
Mr. Magoo.
You're a very popular young fella.
I thought it's pretty obvious that Myron is in the hospital because he's had a car accident. And he's been unconscious all this time, and he's had this dream. He dreamt that he was a woman, and he's had a sex change operation. If it's not clear, I think I'm going to have to add some extra scenes. Maybe I need to explain to everybody that there's a film critic who has a car accident, and when he's unconscious and he's out of it and he's banged his head, he imagines that he's had a sex change operation. He's become one of the characters from his fantasy, and only when he wakes up again he realizes he's still the same person he was before. In the book of Myra Breckinridge, he has two accidents. One, he has an accident, and then he has a car accident and loses his breasts. But I thought there's too many complications, so I just let him have one accident and imagine the rest. But if that isn't clear, I think we'll have to reshoot the entire movie.